So today I want to talk to you about one of the antenna manufacturers that I both love and hate. And we're talking about none other than SteppIR. That's SteppIR, not ER. They are actually manufacturers, pioneers in the ham radio world, probably in general, of so-called dynamic antennas. What are dynamic antennas? So dynamic antennas are antennas that will change their length of the elements. They're Yagi antennas, or they could also be verticals, that will change the length of their elements based on the operating frequency. How SteppIR did this was SteppIR had copper tape inside of fiberglass tubes, and then what they would do is they would have gears driven by SteppIR motors, right? And those would then extend and retract the tapes as much or as little as needed. Now, the reason you use SteppIR motors, right? Those of you who don't know what a SteppIR motor is, it is a motor that steps. Like, it doesn't just go continuously. It goes in precise steps. And the reason that's important is because you could tell like how many clicks you've gone ahead, so you can actually precisely determine where exactly the motor has turned, and then exactly how much tape has been extended or retracted. This was a very revolutionary concept because prior to that, every antenna is a compromise antenna. Then SteppIR kind of said, well, we don't compromise. We're just, we have a monoband on every frequency. So what they did was they had a electronic controller that would adjust the length of the antennas based on different frequencies. You could also control this from your transceiver, from software, and then you can have this automatically change depending on what frequency you wanted. So it was a very good idea. I had the SteppIR Monster. I still have it. It's just not up in the air right now. And this antenna, I'm telling you, it was a cannon. I mean, the kind of gain and front to back I got from it was pretty interesting. I was one of the loudest signals on the band until I took it down. I'll explain why. But it was, it was a very interesting concept. And the controller essentially, did the most of the magic. Unfortunately, SteppIR suffered a number of failures. And then you have like the gear sprockets and the gear shafts that move the antenna elements were actually made out of plastic. And the reason they were made out of plastic is to insulate them from the motors, because obviously if you're passing RF currents through antenna elements and they conduct back to the motor, it's probably going to result in bad things. So they actually came up with that. And I think nearly every SteppIR owner I knew had problems with those gear shafts. But that's not why they made their announcement. So in case you missed it, they announced today that they will no longer be servicing the amateur radio market. And they're going to concentrate on commercial antennas. So it's a very interesting twist, because I kind of saw this coming a mile away. But, a lot of people are shocked and surprised that it is. But it's not hard to see with them. The direction SteppIR has taken is motivated by a few things. One of them is that the price of everything has kind of gone up, right, due to inflation and tariffs and all of that stuff. And they raised their prices dramatically, and you could tell that those prices are what you call the fuck you price, right? The FU price, meaning that how essentially it means that, yeah, you can pay that amount for the antenna, but, we'd probably just rather you not, And you often see that in like things like car repairs, where they don't want to repair the vehicle, they just quote you an insane price, So this is my suspicion. I'm not saying SteppIR did this, but it looks like that to me, right? Be very clear. This is just my speculation. Like, for example, the DB36 went up over $10,000, and that's a lot of money, even taking into account inflation. What are you paying for is not only the materials, but also their technology, their patents, and stuff like that. Anyway, they said they're going only into commercial. If you look at their commercial antennas, you could see one of their areas that they love to basically say that, you know, they're very much into is high-speed stock trading. Now, I talked about this in a previous video where the stock traders are looking to bust the latency. They're looking to reduce the latency for a few reasons. If you know how stock exchanges operate, when you buy a stock, you actually buy it from a number of smaller exchanges, and these exchanges, you don't buy it direct from the New York Stock Exchange, believe it or not. You buy it from a number of smaller exchanges, and these exchanges will publish prices, and then you can you know, buy the stock from the stock exchange. The problem is most of these exchanges are in Jersey City, New Jersey, and some of them are in Chicago, right? The Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Then you have the, I believe the Chicago Mercantile Exchange deals more with commodities, whereas the New York Stock Exchange, which is in Jersey City, New Jersey, by the way, they just like the New York Giants are in New Jersey, they have their data centers there because of the lower cost of electricity. So a lot of these small trading shops these high-speed trading firms set up their shop in Jersey City, New Jersey. And they did that so that they could get a low latency connection to the exchanges over fiber optic. The problem is that you had traders who wanted to access the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and also exchanges in Jersey City, and they wanted to have a fast link between them. Now, one of my friends, a guy named Alex Pilasov, he was one of the pioneers of, he's not a ham, by the way, but he's a very sharp RF experimenter. He actually was one of the original Flash Boys. If you ever read the book The Flash Boys, he is one of them. What he did was he set up the first microwave network, and the microwave network uses radio frequency waves to transmit the stock data, microwaves. This worked very well. The only problem is they're very limited in distance, and you had to have repeaters along the way, or you're only limited to a very short line of sight. The thing about that, though, the reason they did that is because if you're sending data through fiber optic, the latency is a little higher because the light actually going through the fiber optic medium tends to slow down because of something called velocity factor. Now, if you do it through the air, there's less velocity factor through the air, and it's slightly faster, and you shave milliseconds off. That could be a big game changer if you do stock trading, because you can actually see the prices at the exchanges before your competitors. And when you do that, you can do a couple things. One, you can avoid taking huge losses on if a price is about to drop. Two, you can also front run orders, which is a kind of a controversial practice. Front running of orders is where you you see the price before, you buy the securities at that low price, then you could resell them at a higher price. You know, you skim off the top essentially. It's a controversial practice. Some, I'm not gonna basically throw hot or cold water on it, but it's a controversial practice. So the answer is latency for sure. SteppIR actually was cited, and I'll probably try to put a couple pictures. SteppIR was actually cited, antennas were actually cited at a few of the sites, and even posted one of them on their website, a high-speed trading site. And using HF radio, commercial radio, under Part 90, they would actually be able to still have the radio transmission. So post-production Rhea here. I should clarify one thing. Part 90 has not been approved on a full-time basis for HF, high-frequency stock trading. It has been proposed by the Shortwave Modernization Coalition, but it has not been approved. These guys have been actually doing tests using experimental licenses with the hope that eventually it will be legalized. And you know what? With Brendan Carr and, you know, Trump in the White House, who knows? Delete, delete, delete. Yeah, that might happen. Anyway, back to the video. But they will not have the short distance of microwave. And remember, you know, we talked about this whole thing with Shortwave Modernization Coalition and how they want to put all this, you know, high bandwidth, noisy stuff on the bands. Well, yeah, that's what this is all about. So, long story short, I think my speculation is SteppIR probably either got a big contract or, you know, they got probably several contracts to do this sort of stuff. And they just don't have the resources to service hams anymore, you know, and not service hams, but service hams with any sort of, you know, efficiency. When I bought my SteppIR antenna, I waited like 9 months. Yeah, it was like they were pregnant or something and they had to birth it or something, right? I waited like 9 months to get my antenna. And then I put it up and I had it. It was good for a few years, then it broke. Good for another few years, and it broke. So, you know, in a way, I'm kind of sad and happy at the same time. You know, I'm putting up something else. I actually ordered antennas from JK Antennas. I'm going to put them up. I'll have 40 through 10 meters and 6 meters again. I'm very happy about that. All right. So, you know, that's the story with SteppIR. Now, what are the alternatives? So, the problem with SteppIR is a patented technology. They have U.S. patents on their tech, on this dynamic antenna concept. There are others who make the same kind of antenna, and they make the same, pretty much. It looks like a carbon copy. I hate to say it, but you know they sell similar antennas. There were a few of them in Europe. There was Ultrabeam and Antenna Dynamica. And then they got bought out by a German outfit called WRMI. Now, in Europe, they're outside the reach of U.S. patents. Technically. Probably not completely, but apparently they got around the patent issue. So they're actually able to sell to customers there. I believe there was one in Japan, too, called, and I hope I pronounced this right, I apologize to my Japanese friends, called Koshinja. And they were actually, you know, a manufacturer in probably Koshinja. I don't know. We'll have to see. They sold the same dynamic antenna concept. So, yeah, good stuff. You know. So my thinking is, you know, maybe SteppIR could kind of ease up on the patent issue for these other manufacturers and let them deal with the amateur market, right? Like Ultrabeam could be sold in the U.S. and you know, they could deal with that, right? What do you think? That should be a good thing. But anyway, goodbye SteppIR, you know. And one other note, I did actually, you know, go and see some of these high-speed trading operations up close. Is no joke. These guys really know their stuff. They're using a lot of fancy SDR equipment. They're using like they don't use like off-the-shelf ham equipment. They use things like Matt Edis USRP, and then they have some custom things that they develop. Their main thing is they want something with as less latency as possible. So SDRs are fine, but the SDR must be fast, and you know, it must be pretty much minimize the processing. Okay? All right, so what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Riaz Hamshak and 2RJ. Peace in 73.